What's up guys, Intellitech Studios here, and today we'll be doing a full in-depth review of the Shark Rotator Liftaway Pet ADV. I think I butchered that name a little bit. I had to actually look at the box to reference it. So this particular machine is, well, quite interesting because it's actually, to my knowledge, the most popular shark that many people are buying right now. I know a lot of people who have recently picked up machines identical to this, although usually in different colors, but they're all the exact same machine with the exact same power head. Now, there are different versions of this machine. There are versions of this with just a more standard brush roll. This is the version with the dual clean power fins. At some point in the future, I'll review the version with a more standard brush roll, as that will likely address and also anti-address my biggest complaint and my biggest compliment to this machine in terms of performance, but we'll get to that in a sec. Now, for those wondering, this review isn't going to be as demonstratable as my other reviews, and that's just simply a product of me being sick right now, so I don't really have the mobility to do the pickup tests and all that stuff. So please forgive me on that front and trust that what I'm saying is still accurate, even if I can't necessarily demo it. I will do a separate video on this machine on a in-depth look on the dual clean brush roller in of itself, but I'll still touch on it in this review because it is important. Now, we'll start off with the price. This machine, when you buy it at most retail outlets, you can find this identical machine sometimes in different colors, and I've also noticed the colors never match what's on the box. In fact, the Walmart one is the one that matches the most. But if you get like the Costco one, it looks like it's going to be like a dark metallic blue, but it's actually black. And then there's another version where it looks like a coppery gold color and it's actually like a brown. But most people don't care about the colors, but it is worth noting that if you are picky about colors, you can get different colors depending on what store you shop at. Most of the time, this machine is going to be $2.99 barring any kind of sale. But if you buy this exact unit you see in front of you direct from Shark, it's actually $3.49, $50 more when you buy direct from the manufacturer, which seems kind of backwards, but that's the way they chose to do it. So I think the question that many people are going to be asking is, well, is it worth it? Because after all, there's plenty of other more expensive machines, right? And this definitely should hold up, right? Well, it depends entirely on what you're wanting out of your vacuum. For me personally, the answer is no, and I'll get into that when we talk about the performance of this machine. So, right off the bat, what's the most important aspect of any vacuum? Performance. How well does it clean? Because that's obviously the vacuum's intended function. How well does it clean? Well, we'll start off with the tool suction, and then we'll go down into the base and how well it cleans carpets and bare floors. So we have a hose set up right here. You've got a button that you can push right here, and unlike other Sharks, it doesn't have like a latch release where it then will automatically unlock it. You have to still hold the button to pull out the hose. Now this hose has a handle on it, as you can see, but I find it to be way too far away from the actual hose, and that makes the weight and the resistance feel a little bit painful, so I find myself just holding it right here. This machine, at least this exact SKU, comes with two onboard attachments that both store on the side of the machine. We've got an upholstery tool with a swivelable neck that just fits right above, and we have a crevice tool that does the exact same thing. So the crevice tool is pretty solid, and the upholstery tool is pretty decent too. There are versions of this that have a brush that attaches to this, but for whatever reason, so many Sharks nowadays don't come with dusting brushes, even if they advertise that they do, which is quite strange. But this particular SKU does not come with a dusting brush, so if you want one, you will have to purchase one separately. Now, the dusting brushes from the standard Navigator liftaways that have been around for over a decade do fit this, so you can get those, although they won't necessarily match, but they will work. And you can get aftermarket versions that look identical, that'll be much cheaper, and you can even get them in bundle packs. I'll link some in the description if I remember to. And one thing I like about this is you do have some air bleed vents on the sides, and not only do you have that, but you also have a suction control on the handle. Now, this is a very basic switch, but it does the job. You've got a little valve right there that opens when you put it on the minimum setting, and this adjusts the suction whether or not you're using the hose or whether or not you're using the floor head. So if you find this sticks to your carpet, that may make a difference, but probably not. But when you're using tools, it can definitely make a difference if you find it clamping down, because this thing definitely does have plenty of suction, at least when the filters are clean. And whenever you want to get any sort of reach, you can just simply stretch the hose, and this hose is a lot better in terms of stretch than the previous Apex machines and the Rotator machines, and it's even better than the more expensive Stratos. Although, because this hose is high mounted, the machine is very, very prone to falling over, which is one of the reasons why I don't really like using the tools on this, because while it does have that valve, and I do really like that, and that does make using the tools a lot easier in that regard compared to the competing Dyson Ball Animal 3, the machine does tip over, something the Animal 3 doesn't do, and it also has a lot more reach with both the wand and the hose, so that helps as well. Now, you do have a wand. You simply press this button right here to release the wand, and unlike the hose, it actually does keep it depressed so you can pull the wand straight out. If your cord is in the cord hook, you will have to remove it first, but once you do that, you can pull the wand straight out. Now, the wand fits in here a bit awkwardly. It's kind of shaped funky in a way to fit into the machine, and it can often get scraped up on furniture, and this plastic is quite sharp, so you can very easily scrape up your paint or your furniture if you're not careful, which is not great. It would be nice if this was smoothed off a little bit better, so that way that wasn't a problem, because while this does have a decent amount of reach, I don't want to actually put it into any tight spaces, because this would in fact scratch your furniture and scratch your paint off your walls, which is not pleasant. But the wand reach on this is a lot better than the Apex and Stratos, so despite this being the cheaper unit, the Shark has made some improvements, and that's definitely very nice. Now, this unit, unlike the Stratos and the Vertex, is not a powered lift away, so you do not have the ability to attach the power head to the main body, and especially not to access any sort of powered lift away, essentially diet canister modes. Those are not available on this unit. It's one of the features you're sacrificing by getting the machine that's cheaper than the flagship Stratus. So keep that in mind. If you want to be able to get a powered power head to go underneath things, it's not going to work. Although I found it very poor on the Stratos anyways, and on the Apex, because I found the heads were too thick to fit underneath any of my couches. So for me, it wasn't very usable. In fact, those power heads on the Stratos and on the Apex specifically couldn't even fit underneath my couches, just the power head itself, let alone the whole thing. Whereas this actually does. So it's got that advantage to it. So I can at least recline the machine back and go all the way underneath my couches up until where the power head ends. So that is definitely a nice feature. In fact, that I can probably demonstrate right now. I can recline this back, and as you can see, with my couch, it goes all the way up until it hits the motor. Now, there is one problem with this design that I have noticed, and it's this. God, this cord likes to get in the way, and it's part of the dual clean system. And I'll mention that because it's relevant to how well this machine cleans on carpets and bare floors. So this particular Shark has what is known as their dual clean power fins, which is an updated version of their dual clean vacuum head, which is basically designed, in theory, to combine the best aspects of a standard brush roll for carpet cleaning and add a soft roller for bare floor cleaning, the ability of it to have large debris slide underneath it and also have a dusting effect on bare floors. But there's a couple problems with this design. First off is there is no airflow going to this front roller, which means that a lot of stuff can get stuck underneath here. Now, it's not as big of a deal as it's often made out to be, but if you're vacuuming up a lot of hair, and if they're big clumps of pet hair, they're likely to get stuck in this roller. See, this is wanting to pop off, so we'll just do this. So this can get a lot of junk and gunk stuck up in it. As you can see, there's a couple little bits stuck in here. It's not too bad, but I've also only used this a couple times. Now, Shark acknowledges this, and a way they get around it is there's this little blue button that you push that you can then pop out this soft roller to clean it. And I'll do a separate video showing how to maintain this machine, and I'll show you how to do that as well. Now, this main brush is quite interesting. So instead of having a standard stiff bristle brush like pretty much every other vacuum, Shark has elected to change the design into what is known as their power fins, which the only thing that makes them notable in terms of how they're designed is that instead of them putting stiff bristles on here in order to properly agitate and loosen dirt out of carpets, which is the entire purpose of having a spinning brush roller, for some reason Shark thought it'd be a good idea to still put bristles on it but make them incredibly soft. Like if you thought the early Oryx were soft, this is incredibly soft. This has no agitation power whatsoever. And the worst part is that it doesn't even cover the middle of the power head, something that no one's really ever mentioned in their reviews. As you can see, this brush ends here, this brush ends here, and those are the only ones. Well, actually, looks like there are 2 layers on each side, but nevertheless, the actual section where the air goes through, there is no agitation. Now, Shark will say that these fins right here are capable of deep cleaning carpets, but they're simply not. And yet again, as you can see, they do overlap, but there's a small area right in the middle where these are tapering in and not really getting proper coverage. And again, there's no bristles here. These fins do not clean carpets. And I've seen that where I've had just basic coarse debris on my carpets, like little bits of Cheetos, not full-on chips, but like little crumbs, little pieces of paper, little bits of just whatever things end up on the floor that you don't really think about. And they would not get picked up after one pass. I had to go over it multiple times to get the debris to be picked up by this Shark. And that was when it was brand new out of the box. Literally had nothing else going through it. So, unfortunately, while I am impressed with how well this power fin setup cleans, considering how much it clearly is not designed to clean, like, you'd expect this thing to not pick up anything, but it does pick up some stuff. Somehow this does manage to clean a little bit, which is still impressive on the engineering parts of Shark, but again, there are machines that are a third, there are machines that are a sixth the price that clean better than this on carpets with a much more basic brush roll setup. There's also a few other problems with this. The first off is that this brush roll is not at all serviceable. Now the good news is that it's very good at resisting hair tangles. There's no hair on this, and it simply doesn't tangle. So that's good. But you still have to maintain this front roller, so it kind of cancels out. And also, if anything gets into the ends of these, or if these bearings that drive this brush roll ever seize up, the only thing you're able to do at that point is replace the entire power head. And guess what? The power head is not covered under the warranty. So even though you bought this vacuum believing that you had a 5-year warranty with it, think again, because the part that's going to be most likely to fail in this machine is not covered under the warranty. Now that doesn't mean that it's going to fail, and it's possible that you might actually have it last, but it's not designed to. And that in particular I have quite a big problem with, because you're not investing in anything. You're not investing in a product that is actually designed to last. This is simply something that's designed to look good in marketing videos and yet not actually perform in the real world, at least when it comes to the power fins. The soft roller actually does perform excellent on bare floors, and I've heard other vacuum reviewers claim that this soft roller scratches bare floors. In the time that I've been using soft rollers on my hard floors, I've seen zero evidence of this scratching in the entire time that I've used it. And realistically, if you think about it with logic, these small wheels and this plastic is all much more likely to scratch the floor than this soft roller. And if you have uneven floors like I do, then yeah, all of this is going to make contact and scratch your floor long before this is. So that is definitely one of the things that is interesting about the Duo Clean power fins. And my sort of hypothesis, or not hypothesis, my sort of summary of all the stuff that I just said is that this system works great on bare floors. So if you're buying this machine to use on bare floors, it's pretty decent. It does a great job dusting bare floors. It picks up debris good on bare floors. Of course, super large debris it's going to struggle with just like anything else, but it will get it. However, carpet cleaning performance is terrible. and it's not something at all to pick this machine up for. If you have new carpet, if you have expensive carpet, if you have deep pile carpets, if you have rugs that you care about, this is not going to clean well, because this has actually actively torn up several spots on my rug. And despite that, it hasn't done a great job cleaning it, because I ran over this rug after vacuuming with my Shark with a 25-year-old Phantom, and it pulled up a significant amount of dirt that this had left behind, especially a lot of fine dust. Because one thing this machine struggles with is fine dust, and that's because this dual clean power fin system does not agitate the carpet enough to actually pull up dust. Now, it'll pick up pet hair and human hair just fine. It'll pick up sand and grit okay, but it struggles with fine dust. It has the exact same problem that a lot of other machines have had in older designs that have been fixed. And the crazy thing is that Shark's cheaper machines that have a more basic brush roll setup, like the NV352, do not have that problem. So if you're wanting to buy a Shark for your carpets, I don't understand why you would spend double the price to get a machine that doesn't clean nearly as well and has otherwise no other benefits. Now, there are a couple things that are improved on this machine compared to the NV352. You've got a proper bin release with no hooks. You have LED headlights, that's nice. And you have a hose that is no longer very prone to breaking like it is on the original Navigator. That is something they have fixed. Now, time will tell if this hose has the same issues, but it appears that it won't. So that's good. They've made some improvements to the design. But at the same time, the cleaning performance has taken a huge dive, and that's the most important part of a vacuum. At least, again, if we're talking about carpets. If we're talking about bare floors, you've got a decent case for this. But carpets, not so much. There's also one other thing I need to mention about this Shark that I've experienced with every single new Shark that I've bought. And I've bought like 5 brand new Shark vacuums in the last 2 years. And you know, because you've seen them on the channel likely, is that Shark in recent years has dramatically decreased the build quality of their internal motors. Now, what that means is that when you turn on a Shark out of the box, you'll notice the motor is a lot whinier. You notice it's a lot higher pitched than it is on your older Shark Navigators. And that's not an accident. That's one of the ways that Shark has been actually decreasing the value of their machines. Now, on the bright side, if your motor fails, Shark generally will provide you a main vacuum pod for free. And a lot of times they won't even ask you to verify your warranty, which is quite nice. But that same also applies to the power head. And as we established earlier, if that fails, you now have a $300 paperweight unless you want to drop another $120 on a brand new power head for your machine that you bought under the impression that it had a warranty. And motors are generally something that every warranty covers. But for whatever reason, Shark doesn't. So keep that in mind. This machine, in terms of many of the parts, are either not available entirely, or if you can get them from Shark, you're at the mercy of it being the right part that they cover versus the one that they don't. If it's one they do, great, you'll get a replacement and you'll likely be very happy with the warranty experience. Although they'll try to make you pay shipping, and don't accept that. You shouldn't have to pay shipping on a warranty replacement. And then in other cases, they'll charge you for the part and for shipping on a warranty replacement, which at that point you don't have a warranty. Like, it's literally not a warranty if you're charging the same amount as if a customer was to buy it. It's also worth noting that if your machine has a massive mechanical fault with it, to the point where it becomes a safety issue, and I know this from experience, they will replace your machine, but they'll try to give you a less expensive one. And the reason why I'm mentioning this, even though this sounds like a generic Shark complaint, is because one of the previous Sharks that I had, that I actually really liked, had a major design flaw with the power switch. And this is a unit that I got direct from Shark. And what happened was is that when you turned on the machine, you could see the arc of electricity in the switch, and a lot of sharks have this problem. A lot of the newer ones do. And despite there having been no formal recall, it's very clearly an issue that affects every shark with a rocker switch that's sold in today's day and age. And what happened to my previous one is it actually shot a spark out of the power switch, and it shocked me and shorted out the entire machine to the point where it completely killed the machine. And the machine would not power on, the motor would not function. Power had still worked, but the motor had completely died. So that's something you got to keep in mind of, is that if you're not careful with these and you get one from a bad batch, it could actively be dangerous. So it's statistically probably not going to happen to you, but it's something to keep in mind. If you have kids, you probably don't want to let your kids vacuum with this. If you have any problems with people who are sensitive to electricity, perhaps I don't know if that's a real thing, but it's something to keep in mind, because safety at the end of the day is not something to be messed around with, especially with an appliance that has 120 volts of power going through it. So that's not great. Also not great, why is there a 25-foot cord on a $300 vacuum? That is ridiculous. This cord should be 35 feet, if not at a minimum 30 feet. That's unacceptable. There are other machines in this price range that have 30 feet. In fact, the vast majority of them have 30-foot cords. For some reason, Shark decided to skimp out on that extra 5 feet of reach. So if you want more reach, you're going to have to use an extension cord, which is ridiculous on a machine that's this expensive. So I noticed that right out of the gate. You can spend $300 on a vacuum and it's not long enough cord-wise to get throughout your entire house. Now, this is going to be the part where a lot of people will comment, if they haven't already, and say that, well, I'm just being harsh on Shark. There's no reason for me to be this critical in a vacuum review. Why am I bitching? And I've gotten a lot of comments like this. For some reason, Shark videos tend to generate a lot of animosity. And I believe it's likely because people have had good experience with their sharks, which is totally fine. But for some reason, they can't understand that not everybody's going to have the same experience. Now, I very favorably reviewed the Dyson Ball Animal 3, but there have been people that have disliked that video because they didn't like their machine. Now, if you buy this machine and you like it, that's great. I'm super happy for you. I hope it lasts a long time, and I hope you're satisfied with its performance, because at the end of the day, that's what matters. So, my job is not to tell you to like or not to like something. I will still give my opinion. I don't like this, but I'll tell you why, as I just did. And I'll also tell you that, hey, if you don't mind those flaws, and they don't seem like flaws to you, then that's fine. Definitely use the machine and enjoy it. So, what is my final verdict on this shark? Well, there's one more thing I forgot to mention, and that's also an issue with the power head, where it'll pull itself forward for really aggressively for some reason, and when I go to put it in the upright position, it'll still spin for a bit, so it'll still yank the machine forward. And this I can probably demonstrate real quick as well, because it's pretty typical. That also takes a while to turn on itself. So if you saw that, whenever I put it in the upright position, it still yanked the machine forward. So I'm not sure why that is. I don't know if that's just a weird defect with mine, but that's another thing to keep in mind. Yours may do that. So, who is the Shark Navigator or Rotator Pet Liftaway ADV Advance for? The way I see it is it's for someone who wants a lightweight machine that cleans very well on bare floors, but they're specifically wanting an upright. They don't want a cordless, they don't want a canister, they want an upright machine that works really good on their bare floors, has a lift-away function where they can easily pick up the machine and carry it somewhere else, although it's still a little awkward since the motor does obviously have a few pounds of weight to it, but it is something you can do. And also something where it has adjustable suction and has LED headlights to get into dark spaces. Maybe their kitchen or maybe their dining room is not illuminated very well. In my case, I am keeping this machine as it will likely be used to vacuum my laundry room and my basement, and possibly my kitchen too. Basically, just all my bare floor areas where there might not be as much light, but the dual clean system works very well for that. And when you're using it on bare floors, all the flaws that I mentioned in regards to carpet that make it so poor on carpets actually help it on bare floors. That brush roll is less aggressive, so it's not going to scratch your bare floors, and you don't have to worry about it self-repelling itself because the bare floors are a harder surface, so there's not as much resistance because there's no carpet fibers. So if you're using this for bare floors and you're wanting a machine for bare floors, it's really great. Or if you're okay with having two vacuums, one for bare floors and one for carpets, then this would definitely be a suitable machine to complement bare floors. However, if you're wanting just one machine to clean your carpets, your bare floors, and above floor, and you want it to do very good at all three, then this machine is probably not going to be for you, especially if you're in a larger house. Because again, the hose is a bit too short, it tends to fall over, and the lift away portion is a little awkward. It performs terribly on carpets, and the cord is simply way too short for what it offers. Not to mention, if you're using this in vacuuming a large house, you're likely going to be getting a lot of mileage out of it, and that warranty is more likely to let you down. So that is pretty much that. So I will do at least one, if not two more videos on this machine. I'll do one more video, again, sort of just separately talking about the Powerhead and its sort of design philosophy and its issues. And then I'll do another video showing how to maintain this machine. So that video will show you how to pop out the front roller and clean behind it, how to clean the filters and empty the bin, and overall how to take care of this machine, so that way if you do have one of these, it can hopefully last as long as humanly possible. Because the good news is that if you take care of your machine, then hopefully the defects shouldn't crop up nearly as often as if you misuse the machine. Now, if a motor goes out, there's not really much you can do about that as far as preventing that, because the design of the machine just simply exacerbates that problem. But if you take care of it, you at least might not have it as soon as some other people do. And if you're in that situation, the vacuum may last a decent amount of time. How long would that be? Maybe a year, maybe 2, maybe 10. It really just depends on how lucky you are with your batch. So anyways, I think I've said all there is to say about this Shark. Again, I outlined the exact scenario where I would recommend it, but even in that scenario, I still think there are better options out there. I think you'd be better off spending the extra couple bucks and getting a Dyson Ball Animal 3 if you're wanting a bagless machine, since it just simply has way more features for only a few more dollars if you're buying direct from the manufacturer. Only 50 bucks more gets you a much better machine. And that machine has its own issues too, don't get me wrong, but it doesn't sacrifice as much, which once you get into the $300, $350 price range, you shouldn't need to be sacrificing major functionality and major features on a machine to hit a price point, especially since that's kind of sort of Shark's philosophy, is giving you more features than what other vacuums would give you in that price range, and that's what's made the base model Sharks so popular. So its implementation here is quite interesting. So while I do recommend this machine over the Apex and the Stratos, I still ultimately don't recommend this machine as an overall vacuum unless you're buying it specifically for bare floors and you understand its shortcomings and that it will need to be babysat quite a bit to stay running. Anyways, this is Intellitech Studio signing out with my full in-depth review of the Shark Rotator Pet Liftaway ADV, and hopefully I answered any questions that you may be thinking about during this video, and if I didn't, be sure to drop those in the comments below. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and found it helpful. I'll see you guys in the next video, and I hope you all have a good one.